Don't let a DUI charge ruin your life. Get a professional and confidential evaluation from our experienced team at True Heights Treatment. Our evaluations are accepted by the majority of courts in the state of Illinois and provide a comprehensive assessment of your substance use patterns and potential treatment needs. Get the help you need today and start your path to a brighter future. Contact us now to schedule your evaluation at 708-248-7039 or at thtdui.com.
The George Brassey podcast is made possible with funding provided from Brassey Global Strategies, LLC, a leading political consulting, public policy, government affairs, and research firm. Are you interested in running for elected office? Need advice? Call or email George 708-769-5015. Brassey Global Strategies 1 at gmail.com.
Hey everybody, it's George. I'm so glad to welcome Mr. Clark G. Williams to the podcast. Clark, thanks for coming on.
Hey, thanks for having me, George.
Clark, tell the listeners a little bit about who you are and where you grew up.
Sure. Well, hi, my name is Clark Williams, as George said, and I'm a man of God, a man of faith, husband to a lovely woman, Christy, a Navy veteran of the United States of America. I love my country, and I'm an entrepreneur, which is literally in my blood. And I still believe that the American dream is possible. So I grew up in the Chicago Heights area and the Chicagoland area.
Clark, tell us a little bit about what made you enlist in the Navy way back when.
Well, growing up on the south side of Chicago, a lot of my friends, including myself, were not fortunate enough to be able to have the funds to pay for college. So I decided that I wanted to go to college, but I wanted to go at a later time. So at that time, the armed forces were offering a great program called the GI Bill, to which if you joined the service, then they would in turn pay for your college at a later date. So I enlisted to capitalize on that opportunity to participate in the government GI Bill.
And how many years do you do in the service? And what's that experience like for you? And what time frame is this as well?
Yeah, well, I graduated from high school in 1986. So yeah, I was way before the millennials. So typically, to qualify for the GI Bill, one must enlist for a minimum of 4 years, but you can do up to 8 and still qualify.
And do you do any time abroad, or are you stateside the entire time?
Well, when you enlist in the United States Navy, it's kind of like they put you in a situation where they don't give you a heads up as to where you're going to be stationed, where you're going. It's sort of spur of the moment. So I attended boot camp at Great Lakes, Illinois Naval Training Center, which is on the North Shore of Chicago, just on the tip of the Illinois and Wisconsin border. So my boot camp training was spent there 8 weeks. And then after I finished boot camp, they gave us our assignment. So from there, I was whisked off to Norfolk, Virginia, all of which I spent a good 2 weeks there. And from there, I was assigned to a ship called the USS Whidbey Island. Now, at that time, the ship was newly commissioned, so we were the first to use that ship, to where it earned its name and reputation of being called the Floating Hilton. because it was the only ship, excuse me, in the fleet that actually had air conditioning at that time.
Hmm.
So, with it being a brand new ship, George, our commanding officer wanted to put that ship out on the ocean to see what it can actually do. So, we were in Norfolk for about a little over 2 weeks. And then from there, we went on a 6 month Mediterranean Sea where we cruised in the Mediterranean Sea for about 6 months, just doing circles and playing war games. And I tell you, George, once we hit our first port of call, which was Naples, Italy, I literally, when I got off that ship, kissed the ground. I was so happy to be on land.
Clark, and then you leave the military at some point. Then what happens?
After I finished my tour duty, most of which was spent in Europe, so we toured places like Naples, Italy, Venice, Italy, Rota, Spain, Barcelona, Spain, Portugal, just to name a few. Decided to come back home to Chicago, and that's when I took my first job in retail as a retail salesman at a store called, most of you are probably familiar with it. They're no longer in business. Marshall Fields on Michigan Avenue in Water Tower Place. So that was one of my first retail jobs, and that's where I learned about the retail industry, and I just found it so fascinating, and just dealing with people and meeting people from around the globe, and it was just really exciting.
And at a certain point, Clark, you leave the retail world altogether and focus on being an Uber driver, which is the uh, title of your book, The Uber Chronicles. Can you tell the listeners a little bit about that transition from retail to Uber driving?
Sure, sure, absolutely. Well, it wasn't like a hard transition. I did have several other uh, career paths in between retail and becoming an Uber driver. I spent most of my career in the banking and finance industry. I spent over a decade at a major global bank. Um, and my position with the bank was in the consumer lending division, where our focus was on real estate, and my duties were assigned to collections. So uh, I had a responsibility of collecting delinquent mortgages. So when the housing market crashed in 2008, I saw my income dwindle from over six figures down to literally pennies. So I had to do something to uh, absorb that loss. Now, when I left the bank, of course, I invested well, um, and had, a significant amount of money saved up. But with inflation and the cost of living, I mean, money, you can dwindle through it in no time. So I had a friend that had been driving for Uber and had mentioned it to me several times. Of course, when she mentioned it, I was gainfully employed, with a very comfortable income. So never in a million years could I see myself driving for Uber. I thought that was quote unquote, for lack of a better term, beneath me.
Mm-hmm.
So ultimately, when the money ran out and the well was starting to dry up, I kind of reconsidered that offer. So I decided to go ahead and go out on a limb and give it a shot. Now, hindsight 2020, I thought that was one of the best decisions that I made in my life, because of the experiences that it afforded to me along the way were just phenomenal. And ultimately, the book was derived from that experience.
Can you share something from the book that you think would be an interesting preview for the listeners?
Sure, absolutely. Well, the book was written, obviously by me, the author. So the author, which is the driver, literally takes you along with him through his most epic journeys through the city of Chicago. So he shares all of his experiences. Uh, I mean, you feel the love, you feel the joy, you feel the heartaches, you feel the disappointments, you feel the fear. So the book basically is a series of short stories, none of which are the same. They're all true, but we had to change the name of some of the characters to make it a fiction novel. So it's just a fascinating book, and most of the people that have read the book have really enjoyed it thoroughly. And I would encourage you to just pick up a copy of the Uber Chronicles Behind Closed Doors. It's available on Amazon. We even have it narrated through Apple iTunes. So yeah, just get a copy of it. It's just, I mean, I don't want to give too much of the book away, but you'll thoroughly enjoy it.
Clark, do you have any thoughts about kind of the working conditions for Uber drivers since you were one for such a long time?
Yeah, well, and I just want to say to some of the Uber drivers out there that may be listening to this podcast, when I first started driving for Uber, that was one of my reservations, the safety aspect of it. And that still rings true today, uh, because we're living in a different time now. I mean, it's not uh, Mayberry, like it was in the 1950s. People are different. The times have changed. So, I would just say just to be alert, just know who you're picking up in your car. I mean, not saying that everybody's the same, but we do have, a group of people out there that don't necessarily care about your life. So just use caution and um, don't don't walk in fear, but be assertive. Uh, and listen to your gut feeling is I think most important. If your gut is telling you that something's wrong, listen to it. So if you pick up a passenger and you just get an eerie feeling, don't be afraid to say, I don't feel comfortable, taking this trip.
Clark,
So I'm sorry, go ahead, George.
no, thank you for sharing that. So you eventually stop driving for Uber and decide you want to open up a bike shop in Chicago Heights. Tell the listeners a little bit about how you found the property that eventually became Clark Cycle.
Sure, sure, sure. Um, well, it was sort of a transition period as a result of the 2020 COVID-19 crisis. Um, when I was driving Uber, of course, when the pandemic hit, no one was using Uber. So that pretty much came to a sudden halt. And I just kind of was in a situation where I had to find another source of income. And the pandemic sort of changed the whole landscape of doing business. It just disrupted everything. So when the Uber uh, opportunity sort of ended, I had to create another opportunity to generate income. And I had a few bicycles in my garage, and during the pandemic, most people were at home for about a year to 2 years, and I think we all picked up a little bit of weight during that time. So almost when the pandemic was over, everybody was trying to get in shape. Everybody was trying to get healthy again. And what's one of the best ways to get healthy and to get active and to get fit other than riding a bike? So those bikes that I had in my garage, I listed them online for sale, and there was such a huge demand for bikes. So I was like, wait a minute, what's going on here? So I had this opportunity to retail bikes, and it was so lucrative. So I outgrew the current space that I was in at that time, retailing bikes. So I did a lot of business in the city of Chicago Heights. And I noticed one place that I was doing business with next door, there was a sign on the window about a property being available through the City of Chicago Heights Economic Development Program. So I took down the number and called. Now, that particular building was a lot larger than the space that I needed, but the representative at the City of Chicago Heights Economic Development Program worked with me and showed me a lot of inventory that they had at that time. And I was able to find the 1025 Dixie Highway location through them. And when I first saw it, I mean, I knew that that was the building for me. And they just really, really, helped me through the process. They made it seamless, and the support that I was able to get through the team uh, and the council members through the city of Chicago Heights, including yourself, Alderman Brassey, and the other aldermen that voted for uh, the project to be advanced through the city council. And it was just amazing working with you guys, and um, it was just phenomenal. So I'm grateful to you guys for the support and the help that you've given me. And I think that the city of Chicago Heights has been supportive to Clark Cycle as well. And I'm just looking forward to many years to come, being a pillar in the Chicago Heights community.
I am as well, Clark. What has the response been from people in the community as far as looking at the first year being kind of fully in business?
Well, when people come into the store, the first thing that they say is you did a great job, with the location, revamping the building. And I hear so many wonderful stories about the building itself, um, as far as what it used to be before it became Clark Cycle. So I was told that it was once a Kenny shoe store. I was told that it was once an automobile store where you can purchase parts for your automobile. Um, but the response has been great. I mean, one of the first things they say is that we didn't know you were here. So I hear that a lot. And what makes me feel, so happy is when people from the local community come in and they do business with me, and they thank me for opening Clark Cycle there, because they said that they haven't had anything like that, in the area in such a long time. And they're so glad that I decided to come to Chicago Heights. So that's been, one of the greatest, joys that it could bring to me, knowing that.
Clark, we're recording this in late January. Give us some hope for summer and spring. What does Clark Cycle have planned for the warmer weather?
Well, we're really looking forward to the 2023 season. We want to be there to support the community. We want to, our motto is we're bringing cycling back. So we want to make cycling exciting for the South suburban area and Northwest Indiana area. So we want to know that we want you guys to know that the listing audience to know that we're here for you. We want to make your season safe. We want to make it fun. We're looking forward to, providing you guys with service. Our motto is buy, sell, trade, or repair. So you can buy your bike from us, you can trade it in to us, you can have it serviced by us, and we can repair it. So, we're just looking forward to an exciting 2023 where we're going to have some fun giveaways. We want to do some cycling night out rides for the community. We want to partner again with the city of Chicago Heights with their cycling events. Um, and we're gonna plan some surprises as well that I don't want to say too much about right now, but we are gonna have some surprises for the year. We also want to let you guys know that we'll be available for the 4th of July fireworks. We're gonna host an event at the store. We're gonna be there for the fireworks celebration, so we're excited about that as well.
Clark Williams, what are 2 books you'd recommend to the audience that have been important to you as a person, and why?
Sure. Well, one book that has been important to me is a book called Who Moved My Cheese? And the author is Spencer Johnson. And that book is important to me because it sort of positions you for change. So oftentimes, when we're in even our everyday life or even in our careers, we're comfortable with doing things the way we always do them. So the book Who Moved My Cheese, it kind of puts you in a position where you can be prepared for change. And I'm gonna kind of talk about uh, the 2020 COVID-19 pandemic again. That sort of hit everybody by storm. I mean, we were used to doing things a certain way, but when the pandemic hit, that just kind of put a whole different spin on that to where business wasn't business as usual. Uh, the COVID-19 pandemic, it sort of kind of forced us to change. I mean, in a good way and in a bad way. I mean, it kind of affected a lot of businesses to where they weren't able to do business. It kind of forced some businesses to close their doors forever. It also generated new businesses, such as Zoom. I mean, many people had not even heard of a Zoom call until the global pandemic of 2020. So, yeah, Who Moved My Cheese kind of created innovative businesses like Zoom to thrive. So that's why that book was so important to me. It positioned me to change, even when uh, my career with Uber drastically came to an end as a result of the global pandemic. I was prepared to transition into a new business. So, yeah, Who Moved My Cheese was instrumental in my life as a result of what happened then. And it's going to be important for me in the future as well. So I would encourage anybody who haven't read that book to get a copy of it. And another book is called The Notable Miracle, The Judge, and it's by Dr. Angie Ray. And it's a quick read book. It's a really simple book. This book, it talks about a woman that had four daughters. She lived in the city of Chicago, and she had a landlord which was from Jamaica, and he was sort of what you call, quote unquote, a slumlord, to where he didn't make any repairs to the property, and the property had a lot of disrepairs that needed to be done. So this woman decided to take this landlord to court. Now, she was on the bus going downtown, and she happened to sit next to this stranger, and she just felt led in her spirit to just talk to this stranger, and she poured out her heart to him. She told him everything that was going on at her apartment, how the landlord didn't do anything, how the landlord had keys to the apartment and he would come in and out as he wanted to. And she had four daughters. So that was something that she was concerned about when she was at work. So just told this man everything, and he was a stranger. So when she actually got downtown to the courthouse, they got off at the same stop. So she was kind of embarrassed. So she got out the back door and he got out the front door. So she went in the courtroom and took a seat. And when the session started, she looked up, and lo and behold, that person that she poured her heart out to on that bus was the actual judge.
Wow.
And so when the case was called, he kind of nodded to her, don't say anything. But she knew what that meant because she had already told the story to him on the bus. So he was able to, the judge ruled in her favor. So that was just, a quick read. Like I said, the book is called The Judge by Angie Ray. You can get a copy of that book, Angie Ray Ministries. .com. So that book really impacted me because number one, she was the first author that I knew personally. She was my pastor. So that kind of let me know that the dream of being an author, although it seems big, it's attainable. So that encouraged me to pen my first book. So that book was so impactful in my life. Not only because of the story, but because of the connection as well.
Clark, tell the audience a little bit about where they could find you in person and where they could find you on the internet if they want to connect with you about the book or bikes or anything else.
Sure. You can connect with me through our Facebook page, our Clark Cycle Facebook page. It's simply Clark, CLARK, CYCLE. We have a Facebook page. And if you would like to obtain a copy of the Uber Chronicles Behind Closed Doors, that book is available on Amazon. It's also available on Apple iTunes, and it's available on audiobooks. If you would like a signed copy of the book, you can personally write us at the Uber Chronicles Behind Closed Doors. The address is 1025 Dixie, Dixie Highway, Chicago Heights, Illinois, 60411.
Clark Williams, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
It was my pleasure. Thanks for having me, George. It was thank you so much for the opportunity, and the time that I spent with you was phenomenal today. Thank you so much.
Take care.
You too. Bye.
Help George stay on the Chicago Heights City Council. Go and donate today at tinyurl.com/AldermanGeorge 2023.
Begin to transform your life and work towards inner peace with expert psychotherapy. At True Heights Treatment, our experienced therapists provide personalized, compassionate care to help you overcome life's challenges and reach your goals. Whether you're struggling with depression, anxiety, relationship issues, or other mental health concerns, our team is here to support you. With a warm and welcoming in-person and virtual office atmosphere and a commitment to person-centered and evidence-based treatments, we are dedicated to helping you address your life's challenges. Contact us now to schedule your first session at 708-248-7039 or online at trueheightstx.com. Book your appointment today and start your journey towards a happier, healthier life.
Need more George? Like his pages on Facebook. Friends of George Brassey PAC, Fifth Ward Business Alliance, Chicago Heights Bicycle and Pedestrian Resource Center, and the George Brassey Podcast.